What? I don't understand why
That's good.
that worked.
There we go. And we're done.
You know,
Best show
I was just about to say we have nothing to talk about, so let's just shut it down. But
yeah.
I don't understand why the Stream Deck macros keep getting mismapped. You have one job, retain the macros, and they haven't.
Right. It's my favorite joke from Seinfeld. He goes to get the reservation. The reservation's not there anymore. He says, I don't think he's like, what are you talking about? I made a reservation. He says, sir, I understand how reservations work. He says, I don't think you do. Anyone can take a reservation. The hard part is keeping the reservation.
Yes, they are. Yes, they are. So nothing happened yesterday.
Actually, there was one major item I think we need to focus on a little bit, which is that Outlook.com on the web for education users got a send later feature.
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah, I think that's probably about it. But yeah, it was an interesting. I would honestly, if Apple put up a poll, which they're not going to do, and said, "Would you prefer our live keynotes or the pre-recorded?" I would vote pre-recorded every day of the week.
Yeah, right, and yeah, obviously professionally made, well done. No, they enjoy the public adulation that comes from their home court crowd cheering them on, but
yeah,
but whatever. It was certainly well made.
Yeah,
yeah,
it was. I thought
there was some good bits too. I mean,
yeah, there really were.
Yeah, and I with regards to the big news, which is the Mac on ARM stuff, right? Which we'll call it just for simplicity's sake. Apple Silicon is such a weird thing to say, but
yeah, it is. It doesn't feel. It
I understand
it's not like
they
lotion. It feels weird.
They can't call it ARM, right? It's their own stuff. Series is a weird thing to say. There is going to be a family of chips for the Mac, blah blah blah, whatever. Anyway, but I try not to have knee-jerk reactions. I have a hard time not having knee-jerk reactions.
At least you're candid.
No, just be honest about it, right? Yeah. So many times, like when something like the Apple event happens, I'll kind of blurt out something about it immediately, and then I do kind of a day after thing where you slipped on it, you had time to reflect, maybe you go back and watch the keynote a second time, gain a little perspective. Wish I'd combed my hair, for example. But let's be honest. I mean, this time we knew this was coming, and for weeks, months, years, whatever. But we knew it was coming this week, and we had an opportunity to kind of prepare for what I call the spectrum of possibilities, and from the smallest, well, from nothing, I guess, right up to we're going whole hog, we're doing it all, it's happening on a time frame, and my God, did they hit on that end of the scale?
Yep.
And, for Microsoft guys like us, it's hard not to see this through the lens of Windows 10 on ARM, which has not gone well, and kind of study the differences in the ways that these two companies go about doing things. A lot of people will claim, and it's true, that they move rather slowly. But the flip side of that is that when they do embrace something, they tend to get it right. And I think you see that happening here because we'll see what it's really like. We'll see what emulation of existing apps looks like on this platform. In fact, we're going to see it very soon. Yeah, we'll see what Mac Pro class devices look like with GPUs and I guess slots and things like it. We'll see. There's a lot of unknowns, but given the scattershot approach that Microsoft has taken with the same problem, it's interesting to see. I hate to say it this way because in many ways, there's a lot about Apple I can't stand, but it's interesting to see adults look at something and behave decisively. Yeah. Or respond decisively.
I mean, they were clear cut about it too. On the virtualization and optimization stuff, they've got to be pretty confident about it because they're already shipping development test kits starting like this week or next week if you qualify.
And Brad, sorry to interrupt, but the most interesting thing about that is that those development kits include the exact same chip that's in an iPad Pro today. So they are absolutely going to tailor these chips for desktop computers and for the needs of the Mac.
Yep.
But they're so confident in this that they're going to give you what I would say has to be the worst possible experience, a chip designed for an iPad. And we're going to see what that looks like on the Mac. This is going to be a real truth point.
It really will be. And I think it's going to be a positive for Apple because, again, they wouldn't be shipping these. They would, if they were a little nervous, they'd be like, all right, we'll have something in 6 months, 8 months.
Or they would say, look, we're going to give this to you, but please understand, this is not going to represent the shipping performance, blah, blah, blah. They would have couched it in all this stuff. we are not going to, by the way, they may still do this. Maybe they won't even allow the people who get these things temporarily, by the way, because you have to give them back. But
Yep.
They won't let them post benchmarks or whatever. People are going to do this, right? We're going to know. And so we'll see. Like the language that they use to the people who get these things is going to be very interesting to find out what that is. But the real world tests, because people are going to load up the shipping version of Adobe Photoshop or Microsoft Office, and they're going to tell us what that's like. And for the Windows on ARM guys, because I know you're out there, like this is one of those moments. Like, I hope it sucks, but I don't think it's going to.
I don't think it's going to either.
Yeah.
And the huge ace in the sleeve here is that it can just run iPad and iOS apps effectively natively, right?
That's right. Well, literally, they literally said natively. Yeah. In fact, they're going to allow developers. Now, some will probably do this, but most shouldn't. They're going to allow developers of those apps just to make them available on the Mac, just as is. You don't have to change a thing. That's amazing, and that's really a message. I don't think realistically any developer should do that. You should take the time to do a couple of small things around keyboard support, whatever it might be. But that to me was a message, and that message was, see, it just works. Most developers will be responsible and want to make their apps better. But interesting. I mean, a worst case scenario is the only way to put it for people on the Windows and ARM side of the fence. But we've talked about this a lot. Apple has made these transitions before. It is one thing they're really good at. And it looks like they're going to do it again.
Yeah, and they've already said 2-year timeline. They expect to be fully onto their own platform. They will be supporting Intel-based devices for the years to come. That's not all that surprising.
Of course. Yeah,
but,
of course.
But the line in the sand has been drawn. Like the clock on the end of Intel lifecycle for Apple has started, and so it becomes real dicey about buying like a $20,000 Mac Pro.
Yeah, especially those machines for sure. Although the people who need those, right? So there's no way to know what the actual numbers are, but I think the way to look at this going forward is it's 2020. They're going to complete this transition by 2022. In the meantime, they are going to ship new Intel-based Macs.
Yeah.
Right. And so, all the advice applies. If you need a computer today, you buy a computer today. The people who are going to buy these ARM devices in the beginning are basically enthusiasts, of which there are a lot on the Apple side, and that's great. But I wouldn't worry about buying an Intel Mac. I mean, there'll be some number of I think that the short to long term is, on the short side, they will support running Rosetta 2 emulation for some number of years, and then that will eventually go away. And the expectation there is that developers will port their apps that recompile for the most part. I mean, I know it's more complicated than that, and then for some number of more years, they will support Intel versions of Mac OS as they get released. So every year, 2022, 2025, 2028, there'll be new versions of Mac OS, and they will be on Intel and on ARM. They'll be universal or whatever. But at some point, I mean, long term, Intel-based Macs will no longer be supported by new versions of Mac OS, just as today you can't run the latest version of Mac OS, whatever it's called, on like PowerPC hardware.
Yeah. A lot of other, that's obviously the huge shift, right, is Big Sur, as they call it. Also, Paul, you may remember, I know I tweeted it, but I said, hey, I bet when they go to ARM, it becomes OS 11, and it officially is. So.
Which they were really quiet about.
Yeah.
You would think, you would think that would be a big deal. I like that they finally moved past it. People still think of it as 10 for some reason. Well, because it's the version. But I mean, they changed the brand to Mac OS. I don't think the version matters all that much, but it has gotten kind of weird because it's like 10.15 or 10.6, whatever they're on. And it's like
10.2004.
Yeah. Well, okay. I mean, emulating that part of the Apple thing is always stupid to me. But Apple switched to Mac OS 10 in 2001, I think it was, when the first release came out. It's 20 years ago.
Yeah.
Like we've had 19 years of OS 10 basically, or version 10. So yeah, and you know what? Maybe next year they'll probably be 11.1, 11.2. They'll probably keep doing that again. But it's like just move the numbers. Who cares? It's just Mac OS. It doesn't matter.
And then iOS 14, about as safe as an update as it gets. The only really notable thing is that they're finally, it's 2009 all over again. They're bringing widgets to the home screen, like actual widgets. Finally.
Yeah, great. I like having the weather. I have a weather clock widget on my Android phone, like most people do, I guess. But the biggest benefit to that, to me, on an iPhone is going to be that it can shift the icon south, right? I honestly, the two biggest things about Android that I prefer over iOS or the iPhone from a user experience standpoint, like a day-to-day, is the ability to put icons anywhere, and you put them on the bottom of the screen because you know that's where you can reach them, right? With one hand, it's amazing, and you have all this blank space at the top, and you can put a widget up there if you want, whatever. And also the all apps screen, right? Which is what it sounds like. You put the shortcuts that you need the most on your home screen, just like in Windows, you put them on the taskbar or maybe in your start menu, however you work, or on your desktop or whatever, wherever you are comfortable, but all your apps are listed somewhere else. Apple refuses to do this. And so their solution for this in iOS 14 is really goofy. They're going to let you hide home screens. Yeah. It's like, guys, I mean, I get that you have to be different, like you can't help yourselves, but there's tons of smart people there. You're telling me that there wasn't a debate about how could you just have a screen with all the apps? And they're like, Android does that. I don't know. It's just too bad.
Yep. Anyway, so you can get the beta now. I wouldn't.
Thank you for putting up with my rant.
Yeah. It's a staple of the show. You can grab the betas now. I don't realistically shouldn't install them if you use your phone, but there's nothing. They have a new Translate app, which actually looked, I guess, okay if you're concerned about privacy, that stuff, which is fine. Interestingly
if you're concerned
enough,
about privacy stuff, you probably are using an iPhone, right? So as they do more on, the Apple on device message, which by the way, Android or Google has figured out too. I mean, they're starting to do stuff like that. Has always been a good one, and so adding Translate to that, great.
Yeah. Also timely with their watch, they updated it so that it can now detect when you're washing your hands, and actually kind of tells you to keep washing, which is whatever. It's kind of hard to look at that and say that's
washing your hands or similar motions of that type.
Anyways, also on the Apple TV. So here's an interesting one. Apple, among the many things Apple relented on, which we'll get to here as we roll into this. So there was sort of an ongoing feud behind the scenes between Apple and Google. I know, first time ever in history of anything. Apple TV 4K did not support YouTube 4K because of the format that Google was using, and Apple kind of just put their stake in the ground. We're not going to support that format on our stuff. They are now. So with the next version of Apple TV, which
something, what's it called?
I don't even know what the format is. I can't remember at the top of my head, but Apple is now going to support that on Apple TV, the next version, so you can finally get 4K YouTube TV or YouTube on Apple TV 4K. It's a mouthful.
And that's coming in the next version of tvOS, you mean?
Yes.
So, whatever. Okay. Yeah, that's good. That's good.
And then also, which they didn't champion this one. I don't know why. Be able to change the default email app, which Jesus, that's
and the web browser too, by the way.
Yeah.
iOS and iPadOS. Well, see, this gets to the other side of the story here because there are things that people have been clamoring for that Apple doesn't want to admit. People have been clamoring for and they've been ignoring. And that's one of them, right? And so you don't make an admission like I was wondering how they would address some things at the show. And the way they decided to address them in this case was like a quick screen that was up with a million things on it, and it was on there for like 3 seconds.
Yep.
And one of the little boxes said what you just said, and it was only for iPadOS. As it turns out, you look in the fine print, it's also for iOS. And so good, that's one thing. But related to that is their App Store policies. They also quietly made some changes there. Seems like that would have been something you would have announced in the in the keynote. But one of the changes is directly related to this Basecamp complaint from last week, and it goes like this: if you have an app in the store, and we say that, and you have an update, it's just bug fixes. This is literally the Basecamp scenario. It's amazing, and we today might reject it because it violates some policy that you either did or did not know about. It doesn't matter. You have the right. We will now not delay. We will just put this thing up, but we'll reserve the right to prevent it from happening. Like you have to address it for the next one. And that's what they didn't do with Basecamp. And the issue that Basecamp had was, guys, you put our app in the store. We didn't change anything in the app that changed our approach to your policies. It was already in the app. You put it in the store. But then with the update, you noticed we were violating one of your policies regarding telling our customers they don't have to pay Apple. And now you're preventing us from shipping updates that are just bug fixes. And so they're literally addressing that. And they're also going to have a forum where developers can go and they can actually contest Apple's secret rules. So This is clearly a subtle, implicit acknowledgement that antitrust regulators are breathing down their backs. Their developer customers are starting to complain finally, thank God. And I think this is only the beginning. I think there's going to be a lot more concession like this. And if there isn't, it will be forced on them. But
yep,
it's coming.
It is. It's a small step, but it's not going to be enough steps, I think, for most people. So icons
anywhere on the screen. Seriously, we have the technology. I don't. There are no words for how dumb that is. Mm-hmm. If I end up with an iPhone, I'll literally put a giant widget on the home screen just to force the icons to the bottom.
Yeah, I will too. I'll put a nice.
I might even write one that was mostly blank space and a little like a sun at the top or something for the weather.
I think the tweet that got the most hate yesterday out of me was so when they announced whatever Big Sur and they showed off the new design language, I tweeted, "Oh look, Apple got Fluent before Windows 10," because they are. Yes. I got a lot of crap at my DMs from some Microsoft employees.
Really? Yeah. Just by the way, I mentioned being decisive or whatever, maybe responsive is the best word. Microsoft's approach to Fluent is embarrassing. Microsoft's inability to create a consistent user experience in Windows 10 is embarrassing.
Yeah.
Now, look, we haven't seen Mac OS, whatever it's called, Big Sur yet, but I mean, come on. Whether you like the look or not, I happen to think it looks beautiful, but whatever. I don't care. It doesn't matter what anyone thinks of it.
The fact that it's all there.
Yeah, they just do it. Like, that's what I mean. Like, come on, they just do it.
Yeah.
Like that should bother anyone who cares about Windows.
Yeah, I'm gonna go make a guess here that they don't have 7, I think it is, something around there, different right mouse click menus.
Mm-hmm. Or styles, I mean, like
styles, yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, but it's. Don't get me started, Brad. I'm sorry. It's kind of that really bothers me. Like and it really should bother everybody.
Yep.
Yep. So good for them.
Yeah.
By the way, I got a Mac coming today in the mail. Good timing. I bought a refurbished, not iMac, what do you call it, MacBook Air, because I need to do developer stuff on the Mac. And my daughter, I had a Mac, as you may remember. I had a MacBook Air from 2 years ago now, I guess. Mm-hmm. My daughter came into my office about 6 months ago and told me she wanted to know what I thought about buying a Mac for her. And I said, I don't think anything of that, but I have a Mac if you want to try it. And I'm like, I know she's going to hate it because of the keyboard. It's terrible. She never gave it back. I asked her about it. She's like, I use it every day for school. Like, I see what's happening here.
Good job.
So
the other fun thing that happened yesterday is right smack in the middle of Apple announcing that they are switching to ARM. Microsoft announced that they're killing Mixer. Like,
yeah. So someone told me about this. The day before yesterday, I guess. And I said, he's like, look, I know you're going to want to confirm this elsewhere, blah, blah, blah. And I just wasn't able to confirm it. And then, you ping me and I'm like, oh, fuck, it happened. Like, and because he literally was like, it's fate, whatever the Facebook thing is. He had the whole thing. And I was like, I can't believe the Facebook thing was the part that kind of stuck with me. I was like, that doesn't seem right. But when you think about it, they're the two major players in this space, which are Twitch and YouTube, basically, right? Mm-hmm. Are owned by Microsoft's two biggest cloud competitors.
Yep.
And the big play in Xbox and in gaming for Microsoft is the cloud. So you could picture them not going with those guys. Although, obviously if you want to use them on Windows or on the Xbox,
yep.
I'm sure that's there. I don't do that stuff, but embarrassing,
Yeah, they lost a lot of money. They lost reportedly between Ninja and Shroud. Ninja apparently made like $30 million for his contract, and then Shroud made like $10 million for effectively almost a year of gaming on whatever. Was it even a year? I don't even remember when that happened.
It was last fall. It was. I remember we had this conversation. Like, does this even make sense? And I don't understand this world, and I don't believe that these people could be worth that much money. But my take on it at the time was like, well, this shows me they're serious about trying to succeed. So
they try.
It's like landing LeBron James or whatever. You pay the price and you go for it.
I will give Microsoft credit. They did try with Mixer, but it was just too little, too late, and it just never caught any momentum at all.
Yeah, right. So for all the gaming that's occurring in the world, right? On the console space, the Xbox is the small one, unfortunately. Mm-hmm. And in the Windows space, there are established services already, and a lot of guys are using Steam and now the Epic Game Store or whatever it is, and I think this is just, unfortunately, a very sad, I don't know, representation of where they are in this space right now. You know, it's just the reality.
I also think, I mean, it's clearly tied to the end of the fiscal year and all that stuff, but I think it makes more sense in the long term because now they can push streaming on any platform and not have that burden of saying, hey, look, you can stream on Twitch too from your Xbox, but you should try Mixer first. Like that, now they don't have to even pretend that Mixer exists. So
yeah, you could look at it like the music thing. You know, they got rid of the Groove services, and obviously there were people who like them and are upset, just as there are now with Mixer. But the reality is there are these existing services that are humongous and great. And as a Windows user, you're not disadvantaged by using Spotify or whatever you choose to use. And yeah, I mean, Xbox, you know, it's a good message there. Xbox is now an open platform for, it always was really, but I mean, you know, whatever, you know, we have that Xbox overlay stuff. You can add your, whatever the service you choose to use now, and that's fine. You know, it's too bad, but
yeah. So there was that, and then Teams, the consumer preview, but they're not calling it Teams Consumer. Whatever you want to call it is now available if you want to go try to message your family or collaborate with them any more than you already are. That's there.
Yeah, right. And it's just, you can sign in with your Microsoft account now.
Yep,
and
that's effectively what it is. And
basically,
so not that.
But that tells me, by the way, you know, the way they're doing this, I mean, in the language they use to describe it, I mean, this is the beginning of the end for Skype. I mean,
oh yeah.
They can't say it that way, but you know, they're like, we hope that people blah blah blah. They want, you know, this is what they want people using.
No, one day on your PC, for people that use it, you will go and double click that blue icon, and it'll just change to purple as like the splash screen is coming open, and it'll be Teams, and that's just
say all your contacts are right where you left them.